Maria Della Posta, Marc, you are both at the head of organizations that have undergone Women in Governance's Parity Certification. Can you tell us how that benefited your organizations? Let's begin with you.
Oh, Caroline and Marc, it's great to be with you both today. This is really an honor and a privilege. Our involvement began with your organization in 2018, and by 2019 we had reached gold level, and we're on our way to the next level, so we're going to keep working it. You can count on us. The main benefit, I think, is, well, first you get to compare yourself to the best. You get to see what others, not only in your industry, but other industries are doing, and what they've done to put measures in place. And at the same time, for us, it was an opportunity to consolidate a lot of activities that we had been working on into a framework for governance. Just like any key business practice, we really have been able to have that end-to-end view of what it takes to ensure that we're doing all the right things to develop and promote women and talent in general. The biggest learning for me was the notion of sustainability and longevity. In other words, it's not just about doing one or two little things. You really have to have that comprehensive view of all the people in HR practices. And I think it helped us to realize where we were doing well, but also where we were not doing so well. I'm very proud of the executive talent, of female talent in the executive team, but we have a lot more to do as it relates to the talent pipeline. And I think also, the corporate objectives are great, but you can see that there's so much more to do at the junior level, at the youth level, where society still continues to promote very traditional views on women.
But as you said, in just a couple of years, you've had a wonderful progression. I think it's 3 years now that you're within the certification. So we're extremely proud to see that all the recommendations that you receive are actually put into place so that there are concrete actions that are taken and that you're able to close the gender gap in the workplace.
Well, thank you.
Marc, what about at CAE?
Well, thanks. Again, it's a pleasure being here as well. Thanks, Maria. And as usual, Maria's stolen all my great comments. But no, look, I think as Maria was saying, look, to me, it's very effective at providing a guide for us. A guide to put together all the things we are already doing and new ones that we can come up with. I'll just give you a couple of examples that how we've been able to use it to create not only a more diverse and inclusive CAE, but a more diverse and inclusive supply chain. And we have a lot of suppliers, here in Canada and across the world. And we developed, for example, using AI, a database to be able to really, select and also reward, our suppliers based on the measures that they put in place, like, do they have like a woman founder, a woman executive? What diversity do they have within their management teams, within their organization as a whole? So to me, that's all the kind of things you could do, and it's resonating very, very strongly throughout the company and within the supplier base, and of course with our customers, which in the end really pays off. So it's all in the spirit of goodness. We're not at gold yet, but we're on the way. We achieved silver, and from where we were in the past, I'm very proud of where we are, and more to come. Hope to be next time to hit gold.
The other really interesting part is that it does provide a forum for networking and exchanging, and actually our two teams have forged even stronger relationships and have had events together where our talent gets to work together, be together. I mean, in not only in business but also in community. So that's been particularly special.
It's also part of that community that we're building of heads of HR, talent, diversity and inclusion, of all these organizations that come together and support each other with best practices, ideas that can be leveraged within the various organizations. There's no competition, because we do have organizations that are competing. It's not the case for Pratt, Whitney and CAE, but we do have some organizations that are in competition, but they do feel that they will leverage each other's knowledge and experience. So tell me, how do you see a difference within your culture, within your organizations, when female leadership has more of a voice, when there's more presence of diversity as a whole? Do you find the conversations are changing and maybe more ideas, more perspectives are beneficial to your bottom line?
I think diversity, as in gender diversity, as definitely brings a new perspective to the table. but diversity in general, diversity in thought and background and all these other things. You know, going from a 1 product family to a 12 product family over our history has been largely a function of having a growth mindset. And by nature, that means, you know, looking at what's next, you know, what's outside of your sector, the ability to collaborate with people outside of your own space. And so to the extent that we've been able to bring together teams from various walks of life, both from within and outside, you know, in today's world, it's a very complex and, you know, dynamic world. And, you know, people bring different perspectives. That's what makes us strong. I think that's been in large part a part of our success. And, you know, I see it every day with my team, for example.
Thank you, Maria. What have you seen, Marc?
Well, I would say the same thing, no question at all. It's obvious the change, and people talk about it, it's kind of cliche, you know, we're going to have a diversity of thought, but it's true. It's absolutely true. You know, I live it every day. I can give you one specific example. A few years ago, 5 actually, we decided to change our culture at CAE. We needed to, because of, you know, the imperative to grow, and that was absolutely required, that we were able to really empower what was at that time about 10,000 employees at CAE, and we needed to change our values, our culture, and we were literally able to do that because of the women around the table, the diversity of thought. It's one specific woman in charge that you know very well, and you know very well, that who's on my EMC, who drove it
Let's
forward.
Give her name.
Hélène Gagnon.
Yes,
Okay. Who actually drove the agenda forward, you know, called us out, you know, whenever, you know, we were going back into our subjective biases, which we all have, and it's been the cultural transformation has been outstanding, and it's really resulted to me in a very large part to the success that we've had in the organization, in really transforming ourselves over the last 5 years. So to me, it's absolutely no doubt of the value of diversity and inclusion.
And inclusion. So that's such a great point, right? Because every organization is going to say, we want to attract more diversity, we understand the value. And then when these members of diversity come into the organization and the culture doesn't really make them feel welcome and they feel that they need to fit, then they don't stay, right? And inclusion is key to really actually leveraging this in a positive way so that it has a positive impact on your innovation, on your penetration of markets, creation of new products, branding, the employee engagement, and all of that obviously is going to end up with a positive impact on your financial performance. So everybody wins. Now your industry, the aerospace industry, still is seen as a male-dominated industry. What could we do to attract and retain more women specifically?
Well, look, if I could start, to me, first and foremost, we got to have more role models. You know, we have great role model right here with Maria, outstanding. You know, I've known Maria for 20 years now for sure. And, you know, just the fact that you have, and I have a lot in my organization, you know, we've grown ourselves at that leadership team from 10% of women on my EMC to 30%. And, you know, when the whole workforce, and specifically women in the organization, women just joining the company, for example, they see successful women at the top of the organization, and women that are, you know, not elderly, should I say, they're young, they can say, I can get there too. So role models are very important. Also, I think we have to start, specifically in our industry, we have to start at the beginning. We have to start, you know, really at the, first of all, grounding more women in mathematics and science, STEM roles. That's very, very important. I think it's important as a general rule for society, because of inevitably technology is so important. So I think that needs to happen everywhere, but specifically in women. And as well, guidance counselors in our schools. And I think we as employers have a big role to play in that. At a young age, you know, really when people are making decisions about high school, really get them enthused about aviation-related roles are not just for men. You know, create real, you know, career choices here that can be yours. For example, we have scholarships in place, and we interview women that have become successful pilots, for example. We select them. And when I hear, you know, them talk about the fact that when they were, thinking about becoming a pilot, they were told by their guidance counselor at high school, says, "What? No, that's a man's job." In this day and age, those are kind of things to me what we've got to overcome. More to do.
More to do. Well, Maria, tell us about your own experience. I mean, you joined Pratt & Whitney in 1985, and you're not an engineer.
That's right.
But you made it to the top of the organization. Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
First, I'd like to just, add a little bit to what Marc said. I think that, the importance of STEM in general for women and men, everybody is so critical because, society needs those roles for sure. But, we have, like Marc's organization, a mandate to develop, design, create, and serve products and service. So of the 14,000 people of Pratt & Whitney Canada, 25% are engineers, but there's 40% in operations, the rest all over the company. And what's important, I think, is role models. And so I think looking at the numbers, when we talk about numbers and diversity and things like that are important, but I'm particularly pleased with the fact that we have female talent, executive managers, and across the entire organization, from the functions to the head of sales and marketing to the second in command in engineering and everything in between, because you need to be able to see yourself whatever your path is. So yes, people often say you're not an engineer, but I'm so many other things, right? And I think my personal experience, if I can share that, is that I joined the company right out of university, and it was in a finance role. That's my background. I also have an MBA. But what quickly happened is, my trajectory basically mirrors the trajectory and the growth of Pratt & Whitney Canada, because as we went into each of these new sectors, there was an opportunity to put my hand up, and I did. And I often say success is equal parts fear and motivation. And often I went into these things with a lot of trepidation, and not different from what Marc said, in that asking myself all the reasons why I couldn't do something as opposed to why I could. But sometimes when something is undefined, in a way it's almost easier because you can make of it. And I was coming into a milieu with skills and tools that others didn't have. So I would say to people, first, there's a passion for learning. As a leader, you need a tremendous amount of energy. Like, even when things are going well, you have to be asking yourself what's next. And that desire to always learn, what are the trends out there, what's going on. I think actually women are particularly attuned to that kind of thing. So for me, that was a big part. Every new segment we went into, I found my way into it. And because I did it at relatively junior roles, it was a small bet, to be honest. And I had a lot of people along the way. This is the culture of Pratt & Whitney Canada who helped me. People who had the technical background but I'm not going to lie, being an engineer is a definite plus in aerospace, but there's room for everybody. Our mandate is the world market. We work with the customers who make one airplane to the biggest names in the industry. And with every new product introduction, I got to learn about the product and develop my skills. So I would say sometimes we're married to a concept. When I left the finance role and I went into customer service, I thought, what am I doing? I just 8 years of university and I'm going into this generalist role. And some people say to me, yeah, but you know how it plays out. And my answer is, yeah, well, you don't know how it plays out, which is why the more plays you have, the more options you have. So don't be married to a concept. When COVID, we're all talking about all the things we've lost, everything that's been cut. But there's also things that are presenting themselves. Raise your hand, don't be afraid.
So clearly being curious, being fearless, being bold, being also able to leverage the people around you, your network, mentors, sponsors. Marc, have you been in a position, I'm sure you have in your career, where you've mentored women, where you've supported their leadership development? What do you tell women who are maybe cautious about leading a technical team or heading operations. How do you encourage them to?
Well, first of all, I think I've done that throughout my career, and I've done it obviously for men and women. But women, I find especially rewarding, and I do it every day. It's part of the job to me, and as a leader. Well, look, I kind of the same thing. And by the way, Maria says she's not an engineer, but it's the best kept secret in town. Because for years and years, I thought she was, until I got to these kind of sessions where she keeps saying I'm not an engineer. And I keep looking for the iron ring. I lost mine a few years ago, but that's a whole other story. But no, same thing. First of all, I tell them, be yourself. Don't try to pretend, be proud of who you are. And just put yourself forward, exactly the way that Maria just said. The same advice I give to men. The same thing. I had the same career path as Maria's. First opportunity that comes, some tough ones sometimes. Hey, volunteer. Put yourself forward, and don't be afraid of failure. So men aren't, and that's a stereotype, but it's true. It's true. I find so many times that we have openings for a job, and I'm looking. How come we don't have more women applicants? And I find it's because we have to go out and get them. I have to say, apply, you're ready. Oh, no, I'm not ready. They wait till they get 95%, readiness for the job before they put themselves forward. Whereas the guys, they got 20% and they're there, oh, me. But, so that's part of it to me. Put yourself forward, make sure that you are not afraid of failure. Try things. God knows you have a lot of time in your career to try things and find what you're good at, and it's likely to be what you like doing. So go do that. And I think men has a big role to play. You talked about me, but men overall, they have to do their part. They have to act as mentors themselves. They have to act as catalysts in their organization to challenge the fact that we don't have enough representation, diversity in our group, either as leaders or members of the team. And of course, they have to be inclusive in their behavior, or else you get the bad result that you talked about. We can talk a good game about diversity, but if we're not inclusive, forget it. I mean, you're going to show who you really are.
Maria, est-ce qu'il y a des caractéristiques typiquement féminines qui t'ont aidé à progresser de la manière dont tu l'as fait?
Cette notion de collaboration. Et je parle beaucoup à les nouveaux gradués, les étudiants et tout ça, qui me demandent toujours la même question. L'aérospatiale, c'est inatteignable, comment on peut progresser. Et je suis tout le temps surprise parce que comme industrie, il y a tellement d'opportunités. Et ce que je leur dis, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, les disciplines, c'est pas comme c'était. Il n'y a pas finance, technique, commerciale. C'est très intégré. Et je pense que les femmes, en général, elles ont cette habilité de rassembler le monde, de tricoter entre différentes disciplines quelque chose, les aspects stratégiques. Si je pense à toutes les transformations qu'on a faites tout dernièrement au niveau du modèle d'affaires, c'est justement, on a vu cette complicité qui existe, ce besoin de tricoter toutes les disciplines, et je pense que les femmes, comme les hommes, mais si on parle de stéréotypes, que moi j'aime pas tellement, mais de toute façon, il y en a, je dirais que celui-là, c'est un des plus forts. Le travail d'équipe, c'est très, très... et notre industrie, ça se fait pas sans cette collaboration. L'avionneur, le motoriste, tous les systèmes, il n'y a pas un qui peut rassembler tout ça. Avec les universités, les écoles techniques, le gouvernement. Alors, ça prend les gens qui sont capables de justement faire ce réseautage.
Marc, en 2019, CAE a lancé un programme qui s'appelle Women in Flight. Women in Flight Scholarship, I believe,
Oui.
Une bourse pour les femmes qui sont intéressées par le domaine de l'aérospatial. Vraiment une réalisation marquante parce qu'on continue à avoir tellement peu de femmes pilotes. Je pense que c'est en bas de 5%. Est-ce que tu peux nous parler un petit peu de cette bourse qui a été lancée en 2019?
Oui, effectivement. Écoute, on en est très fiers. Puis, écoute, on a mis la bourse en place pour la simple et bonne raison, justement, d'encourager des femmes à devenir pilotes de ligne. Puis la statistique que tu as mentionnée, Caroline, est la bonne. Seulement 5% des femmes, là on parle des chiffres avant la crise COVID, mais je suis certain que le chiffre va être à peu près le même après.
Ou pire.
Oui, probablement pire. Et en passant, pour ceux qui voudraient devenir pilote de ligne, qui pensent que c'est fini les avions, non, détrompez-vous. Je pense que tout le monde a l'air de retourner dans les avions. Ça va revenir et ça va être très bon. Puis en passant, on va avoir encore besoin de plus de pilotes. Parce qu'une des raisons qu'on l'a lancé, c'est que justement, il y avait une pénurie de pilotes de ligne. On avait une pénurie, nous, on est experts dans le domaine, pénurie de 300 000 pilotes de ligne, qui est à peu près le double de la population actuelle. Fait que très gros qui s'en vient, qui deviendrait un frein à la croissance de l'industrie. Mais puis, on va voir la même chose dans les années à venir. Parce que, justement, une des choses que la COVID a faites est de précipiter une retraite pour plusieurs pilotes, ce qui va faire un engouement dans les prochaines années. Fait que le défi est encore là. Puis comment on peut parler de défi de pénurie de main-d'œuvre quand on a seulement 5 qui vient des femmes? C'est ridicule. On voit pourquoi la diversité est tellement importante. Et c'est pour ça qu'on a lancé cette initiative-là, qui n'est pas rien en passant. On a lancé ce que ça fait, c'est que ça paye tout l'apprentissage, tout l'entraînement des pilotes de ligne. À partir d'une femme qui n'est pas pilote du tout. Fait qu'on parle d'au moins 250 000 US par personne. Puis en plus, puis on les sélectionne, on a fait ça partout à l'échelle de la planète. Puis ça fonctionne en passant. Parce qu'on a vu dans un exemple d'une de nos compagnies aériennes partenaires, parce que comment ça fonctionne notre programme, c'est que nous, on paye toute la formation en vol, simulateur, les cours au sol. Et une fois qu'ils deviennent pilotes de ligne, ils sont engagés par une de nos compagnies aériennes qui sont partenaires. Puis dans une compagnie aérienne en particulier en Europe, après qu'on a fait ce programme-là, le taux d'application est passé de 12 d'application par des femmes à 35 d'application par des femmes, juste dû à l'implémentation de ce programme-là. Fait que pour moi, c'est très impressionnant. On en est très fiers et on va continuer.
Ben bravo, c'est merveilleux.
Merci.
Et une preuve de plus que finalement, quand on ne compte que sur un bassin de talent masculin, c'est sûr qu'il nous manque, du personnel, mais là, on peut élargir. Alors, c'est merveilleux. Je crois que je vais poser ma candidature. Maria, Marc, any last words of advice that you would share with an organization that may not have started on that journey towards more diversity and inclusion?
You know, in the complex world where the rapid change of not just technology, but trends and everything around us is changing so much more rapidly, I think the ability to attract an inclusive workforce makes good business sense. And you're hearing from two of us. I think our business track record speaks for itself. Not us, but the businesses that have, we're on the right course before us and will continue to be so after us. And
you're too humble, by the way.
No, it's true. I can speak to generations of leadership at Pratt Whitney Canada who, before any of these terms were even in the current space, knew the value of having a team, a team with all its components from different walks of life. There have been heads of Pratt Whitney Canada that have come from every discipline, from engineers to finance to operations, and it's been always present. I always felt it, and I've been there for 35 years, as you said earlier. But I would say to companies who are wondering about it, that again, it's just good business in a world that is so changing and whatever. And again, when you talk to the young people in school today, I find myself having to tell them this because they don't realize it themselves. They come with so much talent and skill, this ability to navigate through multiple disciplines, things that I learned one thing at a time over decades. They have it all. And so if you don't maximize that, that's a total waste of your company resources and the potential that you could achieve. But I would also caution two things. One is, we touched on it, COVID, and we know that the impact that this has had on women is definitely disproportionate. Whether you look at the women that have left the workforce, or you look at junior talent and how they have, again, left the workforce disproportionate to the population that they are, this will set us back decades. So we're not even in the, we want to stay the course and get better, but I'm thinking we're going to in some ways start from further back. So, it's like EH&S, just to take a completely different topic. We used to talk about fatalities and cutting hands and fingers, and if you only focus on that, you're only going to get so far. It's only when we started to talk about active caring and interdependence and how you have to change your culture and not be macho about, the equipment that you're using and how people's lives could be affected. That interdependence is what made the change at our company and many other companies. The other caution that I would bring is this notion of biases. And in one of the sessions that our teams pulled together for us, we had I call it a privilege to have one of the speakers, Dr. Tanya Sabia, talk to us about unconscious biases. And she explained how a bias is your brain taking a shortcut, right?
Exactly.
And what that means is that familiarity is the easiest path to making a decision. Your brain must make decisions all day long, tons of, contacts and points that come your way. And you know what? If you're deciding about whether you're going to stand in this line and that line, not a big deal. But if you're making a decision around people and talent and who you're going to promote or what salary, you need to work for it. You need to make your brain work for it. Bring other people into the equation and make sure that you're getting the best decision you can, because even myself am biased in the quest of going fast and being efficient.
We all are.
And
absolutely.
And that's not where you want to be when you're making decisions on people's careers and salary and promotions and other things. You really want to make sure that you are looking at that, and those biases creep in all the time. But there is no question that having a team that's made up of all of the composition of people on the planet is going to give you the best result.
Thank you. Such important advice. Thank you, Maria. Marc, last word.
Look, I can only agree to all that. And look, I think we have to create a culture that where people feel valued and represented. That applies for everyone. But make sure that you do it and really walk the talk when you talk about inclusivity. Or else you're going to get the result that people just leave the organization because they really won't feel that you are genuine as an organization. To me, diversity and inclusivity, it's obvious. It's very obvious, and we see it every day. That increases the innovation in the organization, creates better results in the end of the day. But to me, just do it for the right reasons. Just do it because it's the right thing to do. You met Caroline. You were just talking about briefly before we started. You met one of my daughters, and I would say to me, the last thing in the world that I want is for my two daughters to have less opportunity in life and in business than my son have. That's just wrong, and that's the number one reason we need to do it.
I often get, even today, told, oh, do we really need these ladies' garden clubs and these, why are we, we should, everybody, this is good for everybody. Yes, it's true. And when we talk about women's issues, we're talking really about people issues, because
it's the society as a whole. I mean, there's no doubt there. Or even at Women in Governance, people might think it's a women's organizations and it is composed of women, but it's so far from the truth. On our permanent team, we've got men, we've got women, we've got people of different generations, origins, religious backgrounds, etc. Our board is co-chaired by a man and a woman, Norm Steinberg and Monique Leroux. We do see the benefit of complementarity of talents, different perspectives, different ideas. They bring us something different, and we need both. So I couldn't agree more.
And Caroline, the population is 50% women, right? But there's not 50% women in most schema of business, right?
Well, Maria, the population is 51% of women. 60% of university graduates are women, and 80% of buying decision-making is made by women.
So, I think that's why we should continue to talk about this, because we are not at that level on most dimensions. Now, having said that, I don't think, this is not about promoting women is not promoting men, right? Because by the same token, I have a son, and I don't want him to be on the other end. We don't want to disenfranchise anyone. There's room for everybody in this world, everybody to reach their potential.
And there's ways of changing this. We can change this. You know, this is not rocket science. The result that we have is because of the input that we've put in as a society. And I'll give you just one example. We were talking about the fact that, you know, a very small proportion, it's still less than 20%, probably less than that, of university graduates in engineering that are women here in Canada and the Western world. But that's not necessarily the same everywhere. If you go to India, that's not the relation, the ratio. It's north of 50-50 in favor of women. So why is that? Well, it's just because of how, you know, we're encouraged to look at those disciplines as we grow up. So we can change this, just like we've changed a lot of things in our society.
Exactly, and that's what we're working on together. So thank you so much. Maria Della Posta, Marc Parent, un immense plaisir, un privilège vraiment de vous avoir reçu. Thank you so much for being part of this. And next time, we'll be in person somewhere, I hope, with a large audience and not just online. Looking forward to it. And thank you to both your organizations for all the important work you're doing for the vaccination to advance in our province. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Roche-Beaubois, French art de vivre.
Diversity means to include everyone, regardless of their race, gender, their age.
Inclusion would be when all of these differences come together.
Recognizing that, you know, every person is different and celebrating those differences.
La diversité est importante à CAE parce que c'est la bonne chose à faire.
I will help forge.
I will help forge. I will help forge.
I will help forge a gender equal world.
J'aiderai à créer un monde égalitaire.